I think purpose, how I define it, is actually, or why, is what we're healing from the past and what we long for our future, for ourselves and others.
Welcome back to another episode of Voices of the Goddess, where brilliant women come to take a break from their successful and sometimes overwhelming lives to level up, live free, and create abundance.
If your hectic life has you feeling a bit lost, if you're building your career, brand, or business, or if you simply want to get the most out of life, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Julietta Wenzel, founder of Body and Soul PT and Soul Candy.
And I'm your co-host, Graciela Laurent, professional portrait photographer specializing in boudoir and personal branding.
Whether you're relaxing with a cup of coffee or running around town, we've got you.
Whatever you're doing, thanks for bringing us along and sharing a laugh.
Here comes the magic.
Hello.
For another episode. Welcome, everyone.
Oh, Graciela, what a day it is today, huh?
It's a great day. It's a great day, and you can't convince me otherwise.
I'm just relieved we don't have an echo now. I don't know what creates that. I need some, there's some techie person out there listening. Sometimes we get these weird echoes and we can't figure out why it is. And so if anybody knows, message us and tell us how to avoid the echo.
I'm telling you, the answer is completely energetic. As soon as I get some sort of erratic feeling where I'm oh, the door's going to, someone's going to knock on the door, the phone's going to ring. Or as soon as I get out of control, something happens with tech. I'm telling you. I used to work for someone that I said his body must put out these vibrations because literally anything technical around him, like computers, they would break. So he would get a brand new computer. It wouldn't last. You give him a phone, something would glitch on it. And I'm I think it's you, man. I think it's your frequency that's destroying equipment.
I have those issues quite often myself. And when I had someone working at my front desk and I've come around, she would tell me, get out of here. The computer doesn't work when you're around. Start doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But
I believe it.
But it's all good. So I had this awareness the other day about expectations and how much they weigh us down. And the expectations that I have of myself and how they interfere with me being able to be my best self and me being able to be free to live and explore. And then I started thinking about the expectations that I have on the people around me and how, even my boyfriend sometimes, I tell him all these things about my perceptions of him and the great things I see about him. And then I had this thought, me placing that on him on some level, creates this expectation that he now has to live up to what I believe that he is. And so I had a conversation with him, just freeing him of those expectations and freeing you of those expectations. And another friend of mine too, that the people that are around my life, they're around my life because I think that they're amazing and wonderful. But this whole thought process that by me, it's not that I don't want, because you are amazing and I want to tell you that you're amazing, but also I don't have any expectation that you have to live up to that standard that I've created for you. And you're free to change and go about your business.
I think it's a matter of balance because on the one hand, I do think it's important to tell people that you believe in them, right? I believe in you and I know you can do this thing that you might not believe you can do, but I know you can do because I see you, right? I see you, I see your strength, I see your passion, I see that you are capable of so much more than maybe you even don't realize that you're capable of. And I can see how that also might create a heaviness of expectations that might not feel so aligned. I don't know. I mean, I guess the real point is it's all about communication, right? And knowing that any expectations, quote unquote, are coming from a loving place, right? And also, I will tell you that when you said to me, I release you of my expectations, I just felt like, whoo, thank goodness. And even though I know all of your expectations of me are so beautiful and wonderful, and I love them, and I hope the expectations I put on like my children and my partner and things like that are well received, and they still matter, right? Like what you see in me that maybe I can't yet see in myself is important to me. Like, I want to hear that. Like, don't stop telling me what you think I'm capable of. And also, I think the releasing part is just like releasing the judgment, right? Like, I think you're capable of these things and I think you can do these things, but if you don't, like, I love you the same, right? It's still okay, right?
Yes.
I think that's the crux of it.
And sometimes I go, does that make sense what I'm saying? Sometimes I feel like I'm talking and it's all like it makes sense in my head, but does it make sense when it comes out?
I mean, it makes sense to me, girl. I don't know. Maybe it's just our frequency, but it makes sense to me.
That's all that matters. That's all that matters. So, but I invite our listeners to think about that and release your expectations if you have on yourself, and what does that feel like? And if there's someone in your life that you care about, maybe release them of their the expectations that you have of them, and see how that shifts things. One woman that I had also shared this with has a relationship with a son that was really difficult, and she did share with me maybe like a week afterwards that it had created a shift that she could very well see with her son. So something to play around with.
Someone once told me a long time ago, don't expect more from someone than they're capable of, because that also sets you up for disappointment, right? Like, our little reptilian brains that are constantly trying to figure out why other people are doing things. Why didn't she hold the door open for me? Or why didn't he put the dishes back in the cabinet? Or, we build all of these stories in our mind, and it's like, I promise you, it's never about you. It's just whatever they've got going on, right? Like, this is a conversation that's come up for me a lot, because I'm like, well, why wouldn't someone do this? Or why would they do this? Or why would not they do that? Or whatever. And it boils down to me making myself unhappy because of the expectations that I have of someone else, right? And at the end of the day, they're not thinking about any of those things at all. They're just happily going on with their lives. And here I am trying to create a story in my head, So I think that's a different way of how expectations can kind of get us. And if you could just kind of flow and just let things exist without judgment, I think there's a lot of happiness to be had there.
Yeah. All right, let's take a short break and then we'll bring on our guest. It's tough trying to have it all, isn't it? You're successful, super busy, mostly happy, but something's missing.
We know what's missing. Lean in. It's you.
It's the authentic expression of yourself.
It is time to uncover your true self and create the fulfillment, joy, peace, and freedom that you crave.
Introducing our life-changing retreat, designed exclusively for women who are ready to release self-doubt, find balance, and embrace their authentic selves.
Join us as we embark on a journey where the magic of Mexico will ignite your spirit and set your soul free, I promise.
Nestled in the heart of Mexico, the captivating beauty of San Miguel de Allende provides a magical setting for our retreat and a sanctuary for women seeking profound change in their lives.
Our facilitators will guide you through a series of empowering workshops, enlightening ceremonies, and rejuvenating practices, all carefully curated by us to empower you to let go of self-doubt and step into your true potential.
Each day you'll be surrounded by the warmth of like-minded women
ready to embrace self-discovery and all of life's possibilities.
And what's cool is that together, you'll form an unbreakable bond, supporting and inspiring each other as you navigate the path towards a more fulfilled and empowered life.
There's plenty of alone time set aside for you introverts so you can recharge and rejuvenate.
Amen. The retreat venue itself is one of a kind. Imagine a sprawling acreage nestled at the foot of a volcano. It also has botanical gardens, sacred spaces for ceremonies, and reflection.
It also has a magnificent dedicated spa room made entirely of quartz crystals, and a sauna and a cold plunge pool.
That's totally me. I'm in the sauna. There's even a therapeutic donkey living there. I'm so excited.
Can't wait to meet the donkey. Plus, every culturally rich meal is cooked for you. All you have to do is sit down and enjoy the experience.
I'm sorry, home-cooked meals in Mexico?
Yay!
So we'll also visit natural hot springs, check out the pyramids, do an easy nature hike, and we're gonna explore San Miguel de Allende.
But the highlight of this trip is going to be Dia de los Muertos.
It is a time-honored tradition. City streets filled with painted faces. It's not just an homage to your ancestors, it's a celebration of the new you.
And it's all included.
Woo-hoo! So imagine coming back home and waking up each day knowing that you have the tools to create a life that brings you joy every single day.
And it's all within reach.
So the time is now and space is limited.
So visit our website at botgpodcast.com to learn more and reserve your spot.
I promise you, the journey to a more fulfilled and empowered life starts here.
We can't wait to create this magical experience with you.
See you soon.
Hello, Jannette. Welcome to the show.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. How are you two lovely ladies?
We are excited to have you on the show. And some people are going to be listening on this podcast and they're not going to know, but if you go to YouTube, I have to say, I love your glasses, Jannette. They just put a huge smile on my face.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I think that was a fascinating conversation you were having about expectations, because it's such a big part of our life. And I really know for me, the expectation is not the issue. It's the gap between the expectation and the reality where the suffering lies.
Yeah.
So I think the goal there is to take action to bridge the gap. If it's me, if it's someone else, my goal is to let go. Well, to check, because I think your comment, Graciela, about believing in someone is very beautiful, but that's about them. Expectation is about me. I have some agenda. I have something that I want or need, and I'm not, getting it or communicating it or whatever. So I think it's a really important conversation. So thank you for that. Started off the day really deeply.
Thank you. So will you please take a moment and introduce yourself to our audience? Tell them a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what keeps you passionate about doing what you do.
Sure. All right. So I'm known as the Why Whisperer, and part of the reason for that is that I'm really passionate about supporting people, and I especially work with women and a few smart men who are really curious about making sure that they live into their purpose or their passion or their mission or whatever we want to call it. I find that purpose and mission have expectations tied to them. And so I use the word why because I believe that's something where we put our stick in the sand and really have more of a sense of self-determination around that word. I'm passionate about that because I think purpose and meaning are really important. You were talking about the stories we tell. We tell better stories when we're living from a place of meaning or being kind of purpose-led, I believe. And I'm really passionate about that, but it started a long time ago. So I'll just tell you a quick story to give you more of a sense of who I am. When I was 4, almost 5, I grew up with a lot of violence and addictions and chaos. And my mom was married 5 times before I was 8. And there was a lot of abuse and so forth. And so I kind of taught myself how to read, and books became my refuge. It was where I would hide from the insanity and the violence. And I really wanted the book Heidi. And I begged my mom, as only a very determined child can. Mom, can we please get the book? Please. How about now? How about now? Can we get it now? How about now? What do you think now? What about today? How about today? Can we go get the book? Please, please, please. On and on this went. And finally, one day she turned around and she said, "No, we can't afford it." And I was really shocked, not by what she said, because she had said that my whole life. It was by the look on her face of shame and sadness and frustration and anger and regret. It was a combination that to this day still gets me kind of, verklempt and
I
choked
can
up.
feel it.
Yeah, it was, and I was only 5, but I remember, I don't remember much of my childhood, but I remember that moment, and I remember deciding I never wanted to see that look on another person's face, not hers, not mine, not anybody else's, that shouldn't be. I didn't know how to solve it. I didn't know what that meant, but I made a commitment that day that I was going to do what it took to not see that look on someone else's face, to not live a life of no, but to live a life of yes. And like I said, at 5, it wasn't really fully clear, but my whole life has been about 35 years of personal development facilitation and teaching coaching certification programs to support people in not only saying yes to themselves, but being able to help others do that. And 40 years of business startup and turnaround, because I believe that entrepreneurship is really a path to self-expression, to living into our purpose, to profiting ourselves and others from that. So a lot of the work I do is helping people master the inner and outer game of business, starting with their why. Why do they do what they do?
A lot of people I talk to are really struggling with their why and finding their purpose. And what advice do you have for them?
Well, I take it from a slightly different perspective, and I agree with you. I think there's a lot of people, especially post-COVID, that are kind of wondering, I have a great life. How come I'm not happy? There must be more. And many are pushed by purpose without knowing what that means. Like they feel constantly kind of kicked in the butt, but they don't know what to do about that, which is really hard. I've been there. I don't define, the reason I don't use the word purpose or mission or something is because a lot of times that feels externally bestowed, whether it's from God or from the universe or however, it feels like something we have to live up to as opposed to live into. And I think purpose, how I define it, is actually our why, is what we're healing from the past and what we long for our future, for ourselves and others. So what we're healing from the past and what we long for the future, and that is unique to every single one of us. I believe it's a thread that weaves through the tapestry of our lives. It's consistent and doesn't change. It's kind of, another way to say it is what we're exploring for the universe, what we're here to learn this lifetime. There's a bunch of different ways that you can frame it, but basically I believe it's what we're healing and what we long for. And when we do that, when we live into that, when we focus on that in our day-to-day life, whether you're a mom or in your business or, the president of a company or of a country, it doesn't matter. When we come from that, we're more aligned, we're more in integrity, and we're more happy about being the difference that only we can be, because it's unique for each of us. There is no way that we can, no one else has that past and that future, no one else. And so that's what I think it is. I think where people get a little confused is what I call our stand, which is our current expression of our why. Our stand changes over time. You can express your why as a mom, in the workplace, in your community, and that changes. I've had lots of different roles and careers and businesses and so forth, but under it all, my why is that I want you to get that you matter and live like you do. That came out of that experience with my mom and others like it. And so everything I do is about that. When that gets expressed in my stand, whether I'm coaching someone or I have it through my business where I help them grow their business or wherever it is, that changes from time to time. But our why stays consistent.
That's so beautiful. And I think everything you're talking about is rooted in being your authentic self, right? Like that's exactly what you're talking about. And I love the word authenticity. And even though now everybody's using it, but it's still a good word. And thank you for sharing your childhood story, because that resonated with me as well. I also had a chaotic childhood, and I also sought refuge in books. I wonder how many of us English majors are really just, mental runaways, right? For me, it was the Bobbsey twins, I think was the name of the book series, and they just, all these kids had these like perfect lives. And so I built up this picture in my head of quote unquote expectations, right? Like my life should look like that. Why doesn't it look like this? And God knows how long I carried that before I finally said, wait a minute, why can't I just be myself, whatever that is? We can talk about representation on a different episode, but it also, for me, that was my limiting belief, that I thought if I can't be the perfect quote unquote American kid, I wasn't going to ever to be happy, and so I'm curious, you've been through so much in your life. What limiting belief did you have to let go of to reach the level of business that you're at today, where you do feel so in flow and so comfortable with what you're helping other people through?
How long do we have? Because there's a long list of them. I'm going to come back to your question in a minute, Julietta, about finding our why. But that's a great question, Graciela. Am I saying it right? Graciela or Graciela?
The second way. That's perfect.
Okay, Graciela. Thank you. It's beautiful. So I think that the probably the number one limiting belief that I overcame, and that I believe everyone deals with their variation on the theme of, is not enough. Right? Not enough time, not enough money, not enough, not smart enough, not skinny enough, not fat enough, not whatever enough, right? And for me, of course, there was a lot of scarcity growing up, lots and lots of no money, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll tell you the rest of that story if we have time, about the book. And so I grew up with lots of scarcity. And so to this day, deal with overcoming the layers of the onion of that core belief of not safe because there's not enough. And so for me, it's been a process of coming back home to my safety doesn't lie out there. My safety doesn't lie in money. My safety doesn't lie in what I have or any of that. My safety lies in me, my connection, my ability to love, my ability to receive love and be present, who I am, the enoughness of who I am without all of the doing. There's been a whole journey of that, of overcoming the various not enough stories. And so probably my two biggest ones was the scarcity of not enough, and especially related to money. And dealing with that on various different levels. In fact, I'm right now in a program called Prosperity Plus, still working on the next leap for me. So how do I get to the 7-figure level of having an impact and influence and so forth? Because I've done that for lots of other people, but not for me. Many of us can do for others what we don't do for ourselves, right? And the other side of that is kind of the underlying, I want to call it safety, but it's a little bit deeper than that. It's more about trusting myself to take care of myself, because I have always been safe in the world. I sometimes have my clients, and I sometimes do myself, this exercise. There's a website you can go to that counts how many days you've been alive. And I put the number on a Post-it note. And I say, if I did an experiment 20,642 times and got the same result, i.e., I'm okay, I'm alive, I'm well, I'm happy, I'm fine, and I never got the opposite experience, wouldn't you trust the experiment? Wouldn't you trust that that's the truth of it? And yet, as human beings, we can do an experiment 20,642 times and still go, but tomorrow I won't be okay. Tomorrow I'm going to die and I'll be a bagless home lady and so forth. And it's like, come on, just look at the number and get a grip, right? I've been okay and I will be okay. So I think that part of that is, it's not necessarily, it's sometimes just trusting the process, whether you call that universe or whatever. Sometimes, and most often, it's just trusting that I'll have my own back, that I will do what it takes to take care of myself. And so that's been my journey and my process of dealing with those two primary things, those two primary beliefs.
Nice. So we were talking about books. I'm like, I had the book Heidi when I was a girl. I would have lent it to you.
Thank you. I wish I'd known you. But it was actually, I just still love that book. I read it from time to time. And I was going to come back, Julietta, to your question around why do people find it so hard to find their why. I think the other side of that is that it's too close. It's right on the end of our nose, right? It's the fish can't see the water, and you can't read the label from inside the pickle jar. However you want to frame it, it's just that we can't see what everyone else can see until we step back, or we have help with someone who pulls that back from us and allows us to kind of see it differently, to see what's there, to see what, and I think, Graciela, you were talking about believing in people. I think it was you, might have been Juliette, and really believing in them and believing in and seeing who they really are. Because there's a difference between the expectation of who I want you to be, and there's the belief in them and holding space for them as who they really are. And which is the real gift. The first one, not so much. And so I really think that seeing and understanding our why is really helpful, with the help of someone who can listen to us and hear what we have said so often we don't hear anymore. And that it's so much a part of us, we step over it and think it's not so special or unique. But it is, and it is helpful, and it is how we can be the difference in the world that we're here to be. So, but I'll give you 3 practical kind of access exercises that people can do on their own to see if they can hear the theme or find the thread. Is that okay? I'll just give you 3 really quickly.
Yeah. I love it.
The first one is, imagine that I'm giving you a magic wand and you can wave it and change any one thing about yourself, other people, or the world. What would that be? If you could pick that one thing that you would change, what would it be? There isn't a right answer. You don't have to be virtuous. It's just whatever it is for you. Typically what bugs you, right? And just write that down. Then the next exercise is, what do you get on a soapbox and rant about? And those of you who say, I don't rant, I got to call BS on that. Just go ask your friends and family, what do you rant about on the regular? And they will tell you very quickly, because you do it over and over and over again, because it's something that irritates or annoys or you notice or you see, right? So what do you rant about? Write that down. What are you a stand for and a stand against is a variation on the rant theme. So what do you stand for? What is something that you really believe in, that matters to you, that makes a difference, that you really care passionately about? And what do you stand against? What do you want to see eliminated? What do you want to see go away from the world? Also provides clues. And then the last thing that I do when I'm working with people to help them find out their why is I have them list 5 significant experiences from their childhood. Typically traumatic, not always, but typically might be big, might be small. Ideally, as early as you can remember. For some people, that's 2. For some people, that's not till they're 20. Whatever it is for you, what are 5 significant experiences? And you write down the what happened with, just point form, how you felt during that. So what did that little girl or little boy feel when they were going through that experience? Not what do you think as the adult looking back? What did they feel in that moment or in that situation? And what was the story, as much as you can remember? And this is sometimes where it gets really tricky. What was the story they made up about themselves or the world at that time as a result, right? So the story I made up when I saw my mom's face was I didn't want to see that look again. It wasn't okay, and it shouldn't be. People should be able to live a life of yes. Now, where that story came from, I have no idea, because I certainly grew up with a life of no, but that was part of it, was I was pushing off of that, right? So what was the story I made up was kind of, and took it a step further, it was my job to fix that. Now, the story that I made up about that, the rest of that story, I'll tell you in just a moment, and then I'll come back to this. So when you do those exercises, when you do those processes, write them down, then step away for a minute and come back and look at that sheet of paper as if you're looking at another person. What themes do you notice? What resonates throughout? Is there a consistent kind of focus? If you were to guess, what does that person really care about? And what is their, I'm going to call it, note in the choir, and that they're singing? If you can identify that, chances are that's either your why or the end of the thread that you can follow back to your why. And I think that, again, if you come at it from the perspective of what are they healing from their past and what do they long for the future, for themselves and others, that intersection is the why. So sometimes people can use those as ways to access their own why. But most of the time, they need it heard in the listening of someone who can kind of frame it back to them in a way that they can hear and see and live into. And then I have people turn it into what I call their Genesis story, which is like my book story is an example of that you can use in your speaking, in your about us, in your, in your book, whatever you're using and putting out there to get your voice out in the world. So that's one of those are some approaches to figuring out your why. But again, it really helps to have someone who can help you see objectively, because we're just so close to it. It's right there, right? So that's the finding our why, or a process and a way to access. And part of why I think that's sometimes so difficult for people is not only is it too close to us, but there's perhaps this perception that if I know my why, I now need to live into it. And that can be scary as shit, right? That can be very daunting for a lot of people, especially if they don't know what that means or how that can look. So I'll just tell you the rest of the story. I don't have any idea how long we have, but I'll tell this really quickly. I normally keep track of time, but so when she said, no, we can't afford it, little kids don't complicate things. They just pretty simple. So I went, oh, no money? No, okay, problem, get money. Problem, solution, right? So I decided I was going to have a business. And I had seen someone a couple of weeks before in our housing tenement have a garage sale. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. I'll have a business and then I'll make the money and then I can buy the book. No problem. So one day when mom was at work, and I'm sure someone was supposed to be watching me, but who knows, back then, 1965, it was a little looser and my mom was very loose. So, so I hauled everything I could out of our house, knickknacks, small appliances, small furniture, my toys, my mom's brand new dress that still had the tag on it. And I sold it, and I priced everything, because I came out of the womb entrepreneurial. I came out with a briefcase, which my mother did not like. And I priced everything, and I was so proud when mom came home. I ran up to her and I looked, Mom, look, $13.72. I remember to this day, I could count really well on it. And money was my thing. Right. And so I was so excited. Problem, solution, right? But that's not quite how she saw that. She wasn't very happy at all. So the short version of the story is I got spanked. She took my money away. I lost most of my toys. I went back and bought back most of the stuff from the house because she made me. And including I got her brand new dress back, which was $40 was the tag that I know now, which would be like a $300 dress now. But I had sold it for $4 because I saw the 4, and anyways, I got it back, but I lost most of my toys. Now, most people would say, and I got spanked and I didn't get the book. Now, most people would say not a very successful first entrepreneurial venture. However, my thought on that is that it was highly successful because I really learned that we can take our destiny into our own hands. We can have an intention and a desire and a need and create a business that allows us to be, do, and have what we want. It did work. I also learned an important lesson, which was don't go into business with family, because that's kind of kidding, but not really. So I learned that lesson. But I also really learned that there is a solution in us taking our destiny into our hands. And entrepreneurship has been a passion for me ever since then, as a way for people to not only express who they are and their why and live into that, but also to be a solution, to be able to say yes to themselves and to others and to the communities and to charities and so forth. It is, I believe, one of the best personal development processes, and it is also one of the best ways for us to deal with our issues and also show up and be who we're meant to be in the world. So that's the other side of the finding your why, is living into that through the process of showing up in your life in whatever way. And I really advocate entrepreneurship as the best personal growth program you can ever take.
What a wonderful story. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I was like feverishly trying to take notes as you were talking. And anyone would be absolutely lucky to work with you. I love your energy, and I know our audience is going to take so much from that. So I only have one remaining question, which is, when did you get the Heidi book, and was it worth it?
Thank you for asking. I sometimes forget to answer that, and it leaves people hanging. Thank you. I actually did. She cool down, and it was about 2 weeks later. I did get the book. She kind of calmed down a little bit afterwards, and I think she was even slightly proud of me. Eventually. But I did get the book. I loved it. It was everything I had hoped for, and I read it, I think, about 12 times now so far in my life. I resonated a lot with the little girl who didn't really have a family, and goats were her friend. I didn't have goats, but I wish I did. But I also really read it as a story of resilience and independence and finding love where you can find it, right? And I think that that's a big part of why it made such an impact on me. So yes, I did get it, and Mom did calm down. Thank you for asking.
That's so wonderful. I'm glad to hear that you only had to wait 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I had wanted a Snoopy snow cone machine, and I didn't get it till I was in my 20s. So
oh my gosh,
kudos to you.
Well, I'm glad you gave that to yourself after the fact, because I think that that's awesome that you did that. So congrats. Or someone did it for you, but that's awesome. It's never too late to have our dreams. Never, ever, ever. And, I work a lot with maturepreneurs now, women who are 55 plus and who are still kicking ass and taking names. I hope I can say ass on here. Anyways, and I really, really love that they get it is never too late to say yes to yourself. It's never too late to be the difference. And it's never, ever too late to have your dreams.
Beautiful. That's normally our last question is like, what golden nugget do you leave for our audience? And that was just like, without us having to ask, you gifted us a beautiful golden nugget. So it has been such a pleasure having you on the show, Janette, full of wonderful, wonderful nuggets, knowledge, wisdom, tips, everything that we need. So
thank you
for sharing so much with us.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I so appreciate the stand that the two of you are for really giving women a space to be seen, to really sink into the goddesses that we are, and to know ourselves more deeply and value ourselves as the beautiful, precious things that we are. So thank you for doing that on such a consistent basis. I know what it takes to do this on an ongoing basis. And you show up even when you're having a hard time and stuff's not going well. So thank you for that.
And thank you, Janette, for all the beauty that you're putting into the world. The better you are for yourself, the better it is for us, and the more it moves humanity forward. So we appreciate you so much. Thank you for being on the show.
Yay.
All right. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Have a magical day, everyone.
Thanks for joining us today and keeping us in the top 10% of podcasts in the world. Ask us how you can promote your business on this podcast as a sponsor, and make sure you check out the show notes for details on how to get in touch with Julieta, Graciela, or today's special guest. We're sending you lots of love and gratitude. Have a magical day.